Hey guys, GWS here. Here to have really a discussion about what this means, um, and more importantly, um, the future, and I think what defines us. Now, 2015, obviously, Donald Trump descended and he made his grand speech. Um, I didn't even know about it at the time. You always knew Trump would run, but he never really made a serious push for the presidency. Right. You know, and I hear news of him descending and him running and him doing pretty well in early polls. At first, I thought it was kind of a joke, right? My support was and still is behind Rand Paul ultimately because that man deserves to be president. But this isn't about what I support. This is about MAGA in general, kind of my place within it in the future. So Trump descends, he runs, and um, you know, excuse me, he talks about a lot of issues. A lot of them are like kind of sideline issues, but the Republican Party never really took a lot of it seriously. In fact, some of them, like Rubio, were even wanting to go more toward amnesty for illegals. And then this guy comes and says he's going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it, and makes all of these splash comments. Talks about politicians. You know, the guy's talking about problems and solutions, and he's proposing things that, like, are common sense, but you would never hear in the political sphere, like the Muslim ban, um, and the aforementioned wall, and there's, others. I can't remember exactly what was in that speech, but the point is that a lot of this resonated. It didn't resonate with me at first because I just thought, because my folks were into him before I was. I just thought it was a joke. Like, there's no way that this is going to be any kind of serious run. You know, we go further on, and, he keeps running and he keeps talking about these issues. And it's like, you listen, then the debates came after all the campaigning, you know, and your first thought is like, is this too much? Is, like, his extreme kind of loudness going to turn off voters? Because watching that initial debate, like, we're kind of thinking it's over. Like, we liked what he had to say, but at the same time, um, like, you don't hear that on a debate stage. So basically, well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is Trump is not a standard politician because he doesn't really come from politics. He comes from real estate, um, and he has a unique, like, extreme personality. He's what they call the billionaire playboy, right? So, he's not afraid to be out there and trying things. Um, and so what happened was there was an ideology that built off of all of this, that took all of these things combined with other things that were said and done to create pretty much the MAGA policy foundation. And this is what MAGA is really meant to be. And this is what Trump ran on. right? And this is why he won. He won on the trade deals. He won on reforming NAFTA. He won on getting rid of TPP. It's like when Obama was president, he abandoned the people. Because people are looking at TPP and they're like, our jobs are going over to China and Mexico and other countries. We're being tariffed to death, and meanwhile, we allow anybody and everybody to sell shit in this country. That resonated. And when people in the Midwest heard that, it's like, you know, both parties have kind of abandoned us here. Both parties have embraced this free trade message, and it really started with NAFTA and China joining the World Trade Organization. And it's just, like, it hit people who no politicians were trying to get and appeal to. And this is where Trump broke Wisconsin and Michigan. And this is what MAGA was, and I believe still is. So, this isn't just worshiping a man, right? And Trump did a lot of great things when he was in office. It wasn't just all talk, right? He did reform NAFTA. He did repeal TPP. He did get the Muslim restrictions. It wasn't a full Muslim ban, but he heavily restricted it from, and he did it in a way that was perfectly legal, that was justified. You know, because Trump will exaggerate on stuff. But point being, he got things done. And that's what makes Trump great to this day. But, you know, there's another side to this too. Trump was a great president with great qualities. And initially, he had the message because somebody says, I am your voice. I think that just caught the hearts of so many people across party lines. But over time, the messaging started to fade. It became, you know, Trump was never that positive of a person. But in 2015, 2016, he had more of a positive message. You know, he was going to bring manufacturing back. He was going to make the country safer. And he had all of these things. But the messaging became more negative and more narcissistic, and a lot of the positive stuff kind of faded from. Maybe that's just him having to feel like he's having to relentlessly fight. I don't know why it is, but 2018 and 2020, and now this midterm, it wasn't good. And it's not good because his policies are bad. It's not good because what he supports is bad. It's not good because it's not bad because the supporters are bad. It's bad because ultimately his messaging calls out so many people against him because of the negativity. And this is the issue. It's always been with him, is he's a lightning rod. And through this time, though, we've uprooted a lot of the old school Republicans. Like 2016, we wouldn't have been able to uproot Liz Cheney. We got that done here. She's out. In 2016, 2018, 2020, we had a lot of candidates, and out of this You had people like Greg Abbott, Kristi Noem, Ron DeSantis, Jim Jordan. All of these people unseating Republicans, and you had the old ones like Jeff Flake, um, of course, Kinzinger's gone now, and of course, Liz Cheney. Like all these old Republicans, they've either changed to the more Trump style, relentless scrapper fighter, or they've left. And there were a lot of retirees in 2018, 2020 as well. It's like, I can't think of every name, but the point I'm making is we completely changed how this party operates. And it's still not a perfect party. Hell, it's not even a good party. I wouldn't even describe myself as a Republican. And there's kind of offshoots, too, that are negative. But, the point is that you have a lot of these people, and these people are young, and they're the future. And it's like, and I've always said, and I said this even as Ron DeSantis is becoming, a star during COVID. And that was like, as long as Trump demonstrates he can do the better job, then, it doesn't matter what he tweets or says. But I think we've reached the crossroads in that, like, we have somebody who can bear that torch, and he doesn't have the same issues. And that is obviously Ron DeSantis. Comes in and wins his race by over 20 points. And that's why I am supporting Ron DeSantis now over really everybody, even Rand Paul at this point, who I still love, but, and this isn't a repudiation of MAGA, because Ron DeSantis is MAGA. He supports and came through the MAGA pipeline. Trump did a tremendous amount to help Ron DeSantis. And this isn't a repudiation of Trump either, because all said and done, Trump was a great president. All of these attacks and investigations and all this on him, they're unfounded and they're false. And it's just people who dislike him who are trying to use the arms of government to bludgeon him, rather than having any kind of legal basis behind what they're trying to do. So this isn't a repudiation of any one of those. This is simply understanding who can get the job done. And we have somebody who can do that now far better, who has exceeded Trump. Now, Ron DeSantis isn't perfect by any means, because he's not the nuclear bomb against the establishment that Trump was. But he's far more precise. He doesn't have the baggage. He's been under fire and tested by people who are constantly trying to find things against him. And there's going to be more that comes out. I mean, naturally, they're going to find some girl who says, like, he fondled her on an airplane or some crap. But, he doesn't have that kind of baggage. And the only thing is you gotta hope that even Trump himself would recognize this and get behind DeSantis. Because if he has any self-awareness, he'll understand that this man is a proven leader with a message that resonates. It's the MAGA message, but in a way that resonates. In a way that does not turn people off from the brashness and narcissism, that Trump is always going to bring to the table, because that's just who Trump is. He's not going to ever become something other than that. And I just needed to get that out there, that MAGA is not a man. MAGA is a suite of policies. It is a philosophy of putting this country first, like every other country does for themselves. Like, we're not some special entity where we have to focus on the world and they can focus on themselves. It doesn't mean we can't work together as an international community. But to say that MAGA focusing on this country is fascist is idiotic, given that every European country, every country in the world supports the same exact thing for themselves. You can have international cooperation and still do that. In fact, it would help us, because we need to get back into the international order. Because the reason that Russia can start a war in Ukraine is because we start wars in Iraq and Syria. And we go around bombing everybody, telling everybody what to do, making countries sign these oppressive treaties, going out and assassinating leaders of other nations that we have deals with. Like, adversaries look at that and they see that as excuse, as opportunity. And so, when you're talking about focusing on ourselves, that's what we mean. We don't sacrifice the people of this country in order to justify our quote-unquote international interests. We have oil here, we don't have to import it from there. So this shit about the petrodollar, it just has to stop. It has to stop. And the way you stop it is we start looking inward at ourselves. We start making amends to the countries that we have wronged. We start putting our people ahead, and then we, in turn, as a member of the international community, as a top donor to the UN, that's where we can have leverage to make decisions that benefit the planet. Only when we act as a member, as the most wealthy member, but as still one member, one vote in that. That's what I feel MAGA is all about. Like, just putting our people first. That's it. It's not a race thing. It's not an ethnicity thing where we're trying to create an ethno-state. No. Average people simply want the focus to be on ourselves, improving our situation. And that's just the thing that needs to be made clear. Glenn Youngkin, I think, ran the best campaign and pretty much created the playbook for how this can be done. Right? You can respect what Trump has done. You know, if Trump like starts throwing insults or tantrums, like you just ignore it and you just recognize what Trump and his supporters have done, but you move on and you got to put the focus, especially if you're running locally, you got to put the focus on local issues. If you're running nationally, you got to put the focus on the country's issues. And, you know, you have to ignore all of the stuff that's just going to bring down everybody and spread the more positive MAGA message. And that's basically all that needs to be said about that. Thanks for listening, guys. God bless.